Okay, so I'd like to introduce you to the geometry of the Tai Chi paradigm, because we speak a lot about Tai Chi's muscle memory, which is part of the proprioceptive training, and understanding the shapes and the forms within the geometry of your postures is very important. Now, this in the beginning is giving you a basic understanding of some of the fundamental shapes that are combined and mixed together to create what the body posture should look like. So let's start off with establishing 90 degrees. So the feet are in a 90-degree angle and they're both pointing to the corners. Now if you're standing inside a square, your heel would be against the back side of that square and the toes pointing toward the corners. It's the diagonal line, okay? Now we bring our hands straight up like that. In that 45-degree direction, you're going to form this position. Now we bring our hands and merge the palms together right in the center as if you're clapping your hands, and drop the elbows. That's creating the triangle. And then if we open the palms and lift the shoulders slightly and spread the hands, you'll find the hoop position, which is the circle. Okay, now we straighten the arms and square the shoulders with the forearms, then you'll have a 90-degree in here. So that's the square part of the shape. So although it's a rectangle, we can use this as the square shape. So we have the triangle, the hoop, and the square. Okay, now from this point, where the fingertips draw down to the hip, there's a slanted line. Okay, it draws down to the hip. If we bring it up to here and push out, that's the palm out position in the square form. Okay, now we bring it back down and turn the palms up. The elbows are pointing down and you thrust toward the center. So that imaginary center line is really a reference point. Okay, now from this point, if we open it back up to that 45-degree line where the toes are pointing, and we turn our palms to vertical, that's the first position, and then palms out. If we bring our hands back in, we created that centerline triangle again. Okay. So the hoop, the square, and the triangle in a frontal direction. And then when you go out to the corners, you have the 45-degree triangle position. Okay. If we drop the wrists, we have a position for a single whip. Depending on which side is hooked, will determine which side is the single whip. So this would be right side. This is mirror image. So this is my left, your right, and then this would be opposite. Okay, palms down. Okay, so if you keep these positions in mind, the angular positions, which is part of proprioception, then you'll start to begin to understand how much your arm should bend, where the center line is, what rounding and hoop is. Now in the hoop position, you can actually drop the arms, relax the shoulders. You have the lower hoop, and there's the middle hoop, and there's the upper hoop. And these can vary depending on the palm is out or in or out, up or down. Okay. Now a combination of these movements actually will create transitions or postures in execution. So as an example, when we're in this horizontal position, generally you're going to be turning right and left. Okay? When the vertical position, when the elbows are pointing down, then generally the movements are forward and back. Okay, so that's to give you an idea of the direction of the movement. Take into account the triangle, the hoop, and the square. Now in the square position, generally your hands are going to be pushing out, and that's forward and back, and notice elbows are pointing down. In this position, it's the hoop. So if I turn in this direction, I have one, there's the right side and the left side. Suppose I did this. I would have a circle, a half hoop, and part of that triangle. Well, if I turn my hand down and I bring it around like this, that's actually a brush knee. So when I bring my arm down to the lower hoop and I turn, there's the brush knee and there's the push. Bring it down, there's the brush knee and the push. So the idea of the elbow going in the out direction goes in the direction of the elbow will help you understand when you see movements like brush knee, whether it's the top part or the bottom part, you'll start to recognize how those circular shapes come into play. Now say cloud hands, we're in a vertical position and we turn, drop the hand, turn to vertical, rotate the body and drop the hand. This is really part of that lower hoop on the lower side, and then the vertical hand on the other side. And the hands alternate. Now when we see this, you see how this is wrapping around. The elbow is fairly straight. One mistake I see when people are doing this, they track the upper hand, but they fail to relax the shoulder. And it ends up that the other hand is like this. So that actually is too angular. It should be much longer and rounder. Okay, now we'll shake that out. Now let's bring the hands up the center again. Drop your elbow. Now, grasp the sparrow's tail is a combination of these positions that we just went over. And what I'll show you is that in grasp the sparrow's tail, what we're going to start off with is vertical position. There's one on each side. And then horizontal position are the first two movements. That's beginning left and right styles. So here's the palms together. One's horizontal, one's vertical. We go to the other side. There's horizontal. Oh, sorry, that's vertical. And there's horizontal and pressed together. Now we separate the hands. Here's the slanting movement. That's both sides going down at the same time. If we put our hands together like this, where one is in front of the other, then you can see that you can draw a line to each corner. So the corner would be a hip. From the center point to the hip, from center point to the hip, it forms a triangle. So your angular position would be going toward the hip. Now the inside hand is the side that would draw toward the hip, the inside hand. Now once you're down here, if you turn the inside hand up, one of these, it's here, you bring it across to your shoulder and you push off your front shoulder. Now we were pushing like this. That's the square movement. So we take it down to this corner where there's a line from point A to point B. We bring it across the back leg of that triangle, bring it up to here, and then push out toward that center. It's still going toward the center line, but the palm is out in front of the shoulder. Now how do you get that center line? It's because your waist is actually going to come into play to create that target position. So that target position is right in front of you on that center line. So center line is actually a relative to position depending on your angular position of your shoulders. Now when we do the Tai Chi Paradigm exercise, we have rotations, like the first exercise. Although the feet are parallel, you have that first rotation. When you turn from right to left, that actually creates an angular position for your torso and upper body. So the torso will turn 45 degrees. The torso will turn 45 degrees, back to square. So depending, if my hands are like this and I turn 45 degrees, or turn 45 degrees, the reference point is the same. So that's something that over time you'll begin to understand, that the reference point is the same, but yet when I turn like this, what changes is the direction of movement and the dimension. Because Tai Chi is actually multi-dimensional movement, it follows different planes of movement, And as you define these planes of movement, what will end up happening is you're also developing spatial awareness, helping your proprioceptive intelligence, as well as building kinesthesia, which is integrated movement in space, defining these positions in space relative to you. So that's what I want you to learn with this tutorial, to understand the geometry of the movements in the Tai Chi paradigm.